We have a special guest in the building for our warm-up session. It is Joviita Kandjumbwa. I hope I didn't mispronounce her name. Now, Joviita has two main passions in life: sports and law. And with her connection with sports, starting at 19 years old, she found herself immersed in the 2014 World Cup, taking a key interest in the way Carol Chabalala presented the world's most popular game, the game we all love. Now that is when she knew that she wanted to, or what she wanted to do for the rest of her life. And many years later, she now specializes in broadcasting as a presenter on NBC. I'd like to welcome Joviita to the kingdom officially.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much.
No, we that's the only way we do it here on 99. Now, first things first, Joviita. We're in a pandemic. How have you been just managing?
Yeah, I mean, when it started, almost this time last year, hey?
Yeah.
Towards this time, we were like panicking, getting into the pandemic, but now I think we've chilled out.
Yeah.
When it started, I mean, it was all, because we're based on day-to-day coverage of sport. So when that was disrupted, it was almost like, okay, what do we do now? I think I was like home for like, basically the first 2 months we didn't really have much to cover because we were still trying to figure out how the lockdown was going to work, how they were going to allow sports to come back. And most of the sport is contact sport, boxing is contact, rugby is contact, football also. So they're really trying to find a way, but slowly it started, coming back. It's not back yet completely, but I think it's better now. We get to see a bit of cycling here. We get to see box. We saw box late last year. So we just have to now get into 2021 because we haven't really settled into the year yet as, the sporting world. But so far, it's better. I get to go to work now almost on a regular.
Which is the main positive.
Yeah.
Now, let's just take it back for a second. I always say when people are, when we're kids, it's very easy to get into sports because just physical activity is just fun. And it's bigger than the sport. It's just about having fun. So what would you say, or who would you say nurtured your love for sports in your teen years?
Well, growing up, there wasn't really like sort of an influence. I kind of like the regular things. You go to school, you are supposed to partake in a sport. I did a bit of running. I'm not a good runner anymore, but I did a bit of running back in the day, sort of like long distance. I played netball, but just because it was part of the schooling culture, you had to do some sport. Then going into high school again, the culture continued. I went to Hatie, so it was a very rugby sort of culture. So we were always, surrounded by the game of rugby, where we got to now really get into the game because you had to attend, even if it was like sort of like mandatory that you had to go watch rugby because it was one of those that we really loved rugby. That's also the first time when I saw that kids could be not really bought, but transferred from one school on a scholarship to play sport. I was amazed at that because it's something that you don't really see, but that's how big the culture of sport, but most particularly rugby was at Hatie. So I think from that, I didn't really make much of it. I mean, I was engaged in sport, but not like to say, I can do something in the world of sport.
So that you'd say it planted the seed, but it wasn't really something that you're like, this is my thing.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It wasn't really, what I could say was the decisive moment for me to say, okay, let me get into sport. It was sort of like, it's something that I like. I get to go to sports. We used to have, it was a festival. I can't remember the name of the festival, but it was big. Kids from Zim would come, from SA would come, and it was like a big festival we had like during the Independence Weekend. So that was always major, something that we always wanted to see and be a part of. So it really got us engaged. So we wanted to be a part of that festival. So we always wanted to be, okay, let me go do netball. Let me go see what else I can do. It was hockey, but I'm always so afraid of contact. I didn't like to be bruised. So I was almost like on a cheerleading side because I didn't really want to be, on the falling side of the things and the disappointing side of the things. But I think that was where the love for sport came from. And then also at home, being surrounded by boys, and really I think everybody in my family likes sports, so it's that
it came naturally.
It came naturally.
So now talk to me about the transition from enjoying sports in your schooling environment and even just at home with the family to now Joviita saying, let me get into presenting, let me get into broadcasting. Where was that transition?
That was at UNAM. So initially, I wanted to do law. I think that was my biggest passion from school. When we have those what those life skill classes, and then they tell you, okay, well, what do you want to do? And then I always thought, I want to be a lawyer. I thought it sounded cool.
Yeah.
And I was gonna be in front of a court, a judge, and I would be like, Your Honor, something.
Yeah.
So that really seemed cool. And then when I got to varsity, I missed 1 point. I was 1 point short. I got 29 in 5 instead of 30, and I needed 30 to be admitted. And then so I was like, no, go do paralegal. And I was like, no, what is paralegal? I want to do LLB.
Yeah.
And so my second choice was media. And so I got accepted now into media, and I was like, okay, I like to talk. I think I can do that well.
Let me see how this goes.
How difficult could media be? Because I was like, okay, going to do paralegal? Not really, but okay, let me try this, because they said if I could get into the system and get a few credits, I could transfer to law. And so then it had to be like, okay, I'm doing media, but what exactly do I want to do in the media space? Because it's there's some hardcore news, there's entertainment, and there's sport, there's acting. So media is really big. And I had like a bit of thinking the first semester. Even the subjects I took, I think I took psychology or sociology. I took drama. Then of course media was compulsory, and I took political science. Just a variety to see where would I fit in. And then from there, it was then the holidays after the exams. You know, it was the holidays, and we were home watching the World Cup. It was big 2014. So it was big.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And you know, I've been in boarding school, so TV wasn't that big. But now, you know, even my first year I was in hostel, so even that hostel TV wasn't big. So when I got home with the World Cup, we
whole
watched,
family's there.
It was in Brazil. I can never forget that World Cup. And so I saw Carol, and she was anchoring from the beach in Brazil with long Brazilians. And I was like, I want to do that. That looks so cool.
Yes.
And already, because I was trying to figure out what do I do in this media space. And I didn't know one could be an anchor just talking about sport. I didn't know that was an actual job. I didn't know somebody could actually do that. And so I was amazed. I was obsessed. I from that day went from watching to studying sport. And I think I studied sport 4 years straight. I'm not really big on studying sport anymore, but 4 years straight I studied the sport, from the techniques to what happens to everybody who's involved. I went to a point where I actually was, you know, volunteering at associations just to see the background of what actually goes into sport. How do you run sport? And I think that's like where I actually realized that I think this is, you know, what I want to do.
Talk about passion, like extra, taking what do you call it? Extra lessons that you know, most people wouldn't go that extra mile. So it's just beautiful to see that, like, you know, one World Cup, and mind you, that World Cup was entertaining.
It was. And the host lost, I think 7-0 or 7-1
to Germany.
So I can never forget that World Cup. I think I watched it from beginning to end.
And the final was the Argentina-Germany?
Yes, where Germany won.
Yeah.
It was a disappointing one for Messi, because he wanted to win the World Cup. I think it's one of those, he's not a legend enough until he wins the World Cup. And that was the biggest struggle for Messi and Ronaldo, winning a major trophy, and particularly the World Cup. So
I mean, Ronaldo, lucky enough for Ronaldo, he has won
the Euro,
the Euros, but it's not a World Cup. Now, just lastly, just closing, what would you say, what piece of advice would you give to any aspiring sports journalists out there? Like, what advice would you give, and what difficulties will they encounter on that road?
I think you need to get an education first and foremost. I didn't finish my media. I went on to get, I'm about to get my LLB degree this year. I'm graduating. So I didn't, but I substituted that with going into the field and getting the actual knowledge from that, instead of getting the qualification. But I would really encourage that, get an education. It's quite important, especially in the times we live in. It's very important that you have an education. Just being gifted is not enough anymore. So I would say get an education. Find what you're passionate about most. I mean, sport is very huge. There's a lot of different sports codes. Just because I do sport doesn't mean I know all of the codes. You have to find your niche, what you're passionate about, what you love most, and then get to work on that. Become sort of a master of that, and then move on and transition to other things. Learn one thing at a time. It's a journey. It's been like 8 years now doing sports, so it gets easier, but it starts off being tough. Nobody wants to say yes, especially if you're a girl. I realize, what do you know about sport? So you have to have like a thick skin. You constantly have to prove yourself. If it's not oh, okay, you're good, okay, then something is wrong with your dressing. So it's a lot. So you have to have thick skin. My door is always open to people who want to get into sport, especially into presenting. But
And where can we get in touch with you? Just on the socials.
Yeah, socials. So I used to give out my number, but people want me to get them jobs. I can't. So I stopped giving up my number because I really love to help people. But I stopped giving up my number. You can either catch me on Instagram, Joviita Kandjumbwa, just my name and surname. It's a bit difficult, but if you just search JOVITA. I think the rest will pop up. So if you get that, the rest will pop up. You can also send me an email, joviitakandjumbwa@gmail.com. I'm always open, but my number.
There we have it. And please don't ask for jobs.
Yes. Ask
Advice.
for guidance or advice. You can shadow me at work. I don't mind that, but
Then lastly, just before you get out of here, off the top of your head, the first person that comes to your mind, your most impressive Namibian athlete in the last 10 years.
10 years. My goodness, Peter Shalulile. He's the one he's the one that's coming up right at the top.
Awesome. Joviita, thank you so much for joining us and talking all things sports. And we'll be looking out for you at the next AFCON, at the next Cup of Nations, at the next World Cup, at the next Euros. We can't wait to see you on the big screens.
Well, thank you so much.
And like I said, that is Joviita Kandjumbwa, sports personality, really.